All right. That is the gavel, and no, I didn't use the gavel app today. Just using my pen app to go with the mic. So good afternoon. Welcome to your Innovation, Technology, and General Services Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilman Mike Bonin, Councilman Mitch O'Farrell. This is what our third or fourth hearing, and we're rolling on a lot of great initiatives. So I want to start, unless there's an objection from my colleagues, I recommend that items 2 and 7 be put on the consent list. Without objection, got some consideration. Yep. Without objection, that is ordered. Items 2 and 7 on consent. Mr. Villanueva, would you please read these two items onto the record?
Yes, sir. Item number 2 is a motion by Council Members Huizar, Englander, and Labange relative to possible adjustments in city regulation that will spur greater job growth and attract quality small businesses to El Pueblo and the Civic Center area. This item was also referred to the Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and River Committee. While item number 7 is a motion by Council Members Weston and Blumenfield relative to the right of entry permit to the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Authority and Walshea Corridor constructors for use of city-owned property at the southwest corner of Arlington Avenue and Exposition Boulevard.
Great. And I don't believe we have any public comment cards on those two items. So great, those two items are on consent. Now we're gonna take the other items a little bit out of order. I want to take up items 4 and 5 first. The city clerk is giving us a presentation on their newly digitized historical archives, as well as their new mobile version of the council file management system. We have a few guests in the audience from Los Angeles Historical Museum and the San Fernando Valley Museum, so that's why I wanted to get started with that item first. So if you would read item 4 into the records.
Item number 4 is a motion by Council Members Blumenfield and Cedillo relative to the City Clerk's efforts to inform the public about the availability of the online index of historical records and archives and a demonstration of its capabilities. While item number 5 is a motion by Council Members Blumenfield and Martinez relative to the instruction for the City Clerk to report on the status of the LE City Clerk Connect mobile version with a live demonstration.
Okay. So let's, starting with item 4, first, are there any cards on item 4? Any public comment cards?
No cards.
There are no cards on this item. So then if we could move to the staff from the city clerk's office to come to the table as you are already here, reading my mind in advance. I like that. It's just another great function of the city clerk is mind reading. And if you could start and begin your demonstration of...
Absolutely. Good afternoon. My name is Holly Walcott. I'm the interim city clerk for the City of Los Angeles, and I have staff here from my Systems Division, Council Public Services Division, and my Records Management Division. So 3 of our 5 divisions are represented here today. And first, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. Generally, you know the city clerk is doing their job when you don't hear anything, so we don't always have an opportunity to showcase our innovations, so we really welcome this opportunity. When I joined the city in 1987, the city clerk had 300 employees, and now, due to various transfers of functions and budget issues, we are now, as of January of 2014, we'll be down to 80. So the reason I tell you this is it showcases that we have to work smarter, and we have to use technology to become transparent or keep being transparent and to be service-oriented, which I know is of primary importance to you, the mayor, and also to myself. So starting off with our records management, first, I would like to acknowledge Bill Burke, who's here from the Haynes Foundation, and who they gave us a generous donation and to the Historical Society to help with part of the function. So I do want to acknowledge that he's here. But our 2 historical initiatives, one is the imaging of council indexes that predate our council file management system. So if you look in our council file management system, which is how you all look up council files, it goes back to 1980. So then the question becomes, well, what happened to everything prior to 1980? Well, it was all in hard copy, in books, and in index cards. And so what this first initiative allows you to do is have some online capability to know what's in the files so that the public can research. And we do get a lot of research from internal customers, such as the city attorney, the police department, but we also get a lot of historical authors, people who are interested in the history of Los Angeles, looking up records in that manner. So this provides the internet accessibility to everyone. The other one is a database. This is the one the Historical Society started with the grant, was the list, or a database of all the appointed and elected officials, and this goes back to, give me the year, Todd. 1850. So they started the project by researching, again, all the information was out there, but it wasn't all in one place. And that's the kind of thing that people expect the city clerk to have, and now we do have that ability, and then it is now our job to put it on our website, put it in the database, which is what our staff did. So it was a really joint approach between many different parties. And I'm going to turn it over to Todd Gadowski, who is our records manager, and he will show you what the system can do.
So, good afternoon, council members. Thank you. I'm Todd Gadowski. So we've undertaken 2 initiatives in the past few years to make our historical records more accessible. The first relates to the indexes to the council records for the 39 years preceding the current council file management system, which consisted of 27 of these volumes. They've all been imaged. You can literally view the 27 volumes online. Each volume covers a period of 3 to 7 years. There's some cross-referencing. There might be one index to council minutes, another one for ordinances, one for deeds. You can literally open each one up. It had to be broken down into sections for file size manageability, and view each index in its entirety. It's an alphabetical, subject index. As an example, we can note each council action is listed in the index. It might be indexed more than once. It might be listed alphabetically under the department of interest. It might be indexed by an ordinance number. It might be indexed by the general subject matter criteria. If you notice, we're looking at this motion here regarding Council File 17792 from 1944 about defending an individual some sort of before the police commission. So you can literally view the indexes online. But we've also developed a search interface. The interface somewhat resembles the council file management system. It's admittedly not as fully functional a database. It is just a character recognition search of the 27 volumes of indexes. But if we search on that same file number or on the keywords from the description of the motion, you'll get a list of links. So that one file was actually referenced several times during those years in the early 1940s. But then when you click on the link, it jumps you to the actual citation in the index. And sure enough, you can zoom in and see our reference right there. So this is used by anyone who would use council file management system could potentially have need for these indexes if their research just takes them back far enough in time. It's very popular with historians, legal researchers, and property owners as well, people researching the zoning requirements, the progression of zoning ordinances in their community. And then secondly, we have worked on a database to city officials back to 1850. This was funded by the Haynes Foundation, and it was developed by the LA City Historical Society under the management of the Historical Society. It builds on several volumes that have been done in various studies at different times in the 40s and in the 60s, listing all of the city officials from 1850 to the time of the last study. And my predecessor at the Records Management Division, who was the president at one time of the Historical Society, was the project manager of the project. She sought the grant funding from the Haynes Foundation to bring the database up to date, and in discussions with the Historical Society, we realized we wanted to make it current and turn it over to the city clerk's office, who would carry it forward. So this was built largely by the Historical Society. We have 3 interfaces to access the database. The default home interface is based on elections, because that was the arrangement of the original books. There's essentially a chapter for each election listing all of the council people and all of the appointees for that election. So we can scroll all the way back to 1850 and see who the officials were at that time. It's divided into elected officials, committees, which are the committees of the council. They didn't tend to have 15 standing committees at that time. They would appoint a committee as needed. And so these committees will vary from year to year. We jump to another year and look at the committee page. It's quite a bit different. 1870, you can see the elected officials. Last Hispanic mayor prior to Mr. Villaraigosa. You see the committees and the appointed officials. It's a fully expandable database, so if you click on the individual, this is the advantage of the database over the books, you can see every other committee or position that he held with the city. Mr. Cristobal Aguilar was very active, council member, committee member, mayor, and ending his career as water overseer with the city. Another interface is to search directly by the organization. This too is filterable by year, or by the election date. So for each election that you click on, you get a different list of offices, because there was a lot more turnover in those days. And if you click on this title bar, you actually see all the offices from 1850 to the present. You can sort them by the alpha designation of the first word. And then perhaps our most functional screen is to search for the office holder. Because, as I've described, this is organized by elections, it can seem a little tricky sometimes the way the results display. But you can actually search by individual. Excuse me. And you see that we are indeed succeeding in keeping the database current. We can see all the Blumenfields who have served the city.
All right.
Apparently there's more than one.
Yes. I'm married to the other one there.
And there you go.
This screen actually allows you to specify a range of dates. So if you want to search on an office such as mayor, we can see all of the mayors from 1850 to 2017. And when you select the organization of mayor, we have several offices categorized under mayor. You know, the various appointed positions in the mayor's office at different times were included here. But we're just going to look for mayor right now. Here we have a list of all the mayors. Spread over 3 pages. You can print it to a PDF. And also it's stored into a text file, which is very popular with researchers. And so these two initiatives have been very popular with researchers as well as legal, historical researchers as well as with legal researchers, people researching the process behind city ordinances, as well as just people interested in the history of the development of the city.
That's great.
Thank you, Todd. We'll move on to item number 5, which is how we are taking our council file, City Clerk Connect, and making it mobile friendly. And I will turn it over to Shannon Hoppus, who is the chief of our Council and Public Services Division, and with assistance from our Systems Division.
Well, actually, before we go to item 5, I just wanted to say a few things about item 4, and then if we have some questions on item 4, maybe we'll talk about that, and then take item 5 next. Just to start out by saying, I just think it's a great resource putting the historical archives online. I'm really excited about that, and I wanted us to highlight that here so that folks see it, and folks hearing this hearing will be engaged in it. Rather than having to come downtown to Piper Tech and sift through files, it's citywide now, and it's not just citywide; it's worldwide. I mean, it's putting LA on the map in a new, virtual way that is really important. And you mentioned some of the people, but I also wanted to thank some of the folks, particularly Hinda Rudd, the former records manager for the City of Los Angeles, a member of the Los Angeles Historical Society, who served as the principal investigator for this project. Bill Burke from the Haynes Foundation, who you mentioned, funded the historical project, and that's important to reemphasize because we need partners like that to make this possible. And members of the city clerk's office, all of you guys who did this, really just want to thank you for doing this. This is a nice item that we can come up, and the next one as well, we can really, instead of parsing out a particular problem, highlight something positive that's going on. So all of you who were involved in that. I also want to make a mention of some of my constituents who were in the audience today. From the San Fernando Valley Museum, joining us this afternoon, Gary Fredberg, Vice President, and Gerald Fate, PhD, the immediate past president, working with, they're made the long journey from the Valley, and it is a long journey. I can tell you it took me almost an hour and 50 minutes to get here this morning. I know hopefully it didn't take you guys that long because you came after rush hour, but working with them on a lot of historical projects. In fact, we're doing something about Latino history in the San Fernando Valley, which is great. So before we move on to the next item, if any of my colleagues have any particular questions about the item that we just saw, I would welcome that now.
Yeah, I did. First of all, I'm glad to see that we have that capability. I was a U.S. history major, and I wish we'd had that kind of resource back in the old days when I was in college. I'm also a Civil War geek, and I've gone back to my hometown in Massachusetts and gone through the Historical Society in my hometown and found records of folks from my town who were deployed in the Civil War, what the casualties and stuff were. As you were going through some of the older files from the 1800s, and it was showing, here's the city attorney action that was in council, is there anything more than what was shown in that white typeface on the black screen? Is there a way then to find the documents that supported that action? Is that available somewhere?
Yes, the documents themselves are still at the Record Center or in the archives at Piper Tech, but those are in hard copy. But we have all council file records going back to the 1850s, and we have a lot of documents. And actually, I know you guys are very busy, but if you ever have a chance, it's really fascinating to see the archives.
Yeah, I think I'd probably enjoy that. But so there was a reference number there, and then you would bring that to the archives, and they'd retrieve that.
Right, it helps you do the preliminary research so you know what you're looking for.
Interesting. Okay.
It's fascinating. Congratulations. I'm just curious to see how long it took.
Well, the historical officials database took maybe 3 years, Michael? 5. 5 years.
5 years.
That involved keying in the text of those green volumes, which the green volumes only went up to the 60s, so then there was a lot of research to bring it to current times. By comparison, the scanning of the indexes was relatively easy. That was probably completed in about 6 months.
Well done. Someone's probably ready to write a book
Yeah.
based on this research. So I want to thank Chair Blumenfield for arranging for this presentation. Very inspiring and informative. Thank you.
A lot of that old stuff was probably handwritten, wasn't it?
Yes.
Wow, so someone had to decipher all that, and wow.
In fact, some of it was handwritten in Spanish,
Wow.
translated by the early city clerks in the 1870s.
Are there long-term plans to put some of the old documents online as well, besides the searchable database, or is that too far in the future to think about?
It's too far to say. Some of them have been microfilmed, and the microfilm is kept for security. Scattered parts of them have been imaged out of general interest. When we'll get around to systematically imaging everything remains to be seen.
Great. All right. Well, then we will move to item 5. I think we've already read item 5 into the record. And did I ask, are there any public comment cards on item 5?
Public comment cards, sir.
Great. Okay, so let's begin the demonstration on the mobile app.
Good afternoon, council members. Again, my name is Shannon Hoppus, and I manage the Council and Public Services Division with the City Clerk's Office. Before we launch into the demonstration of our new mobile app, I actually want to just provide you with a brief background on LA City Clerk Connect, just to give you some context on the system. It was actually rolled out back in August of 2008, and it's an umbrella system pretty much for some of the different types of documents that people tend to access from our department. You'll see that it contains the contracts that are filed with us, your agenda e-packets, the referral logs, as well as the journals, as well as, and in addition to the ordinances. It also contains our council file management system, and while I mention it last, it's really our shining star. It's the main attraction, and I want to give you just a brief background on that system as well, because it's something that has really transformed the way the City Clerk's Office continues to conduct their business. So we overhauled our prior indexing system, which some of you might be familiar with, Council File Index, and we've now dubbed it the Council File Management System, or CFMS. And it too was rolled out in August of 2008. And it's not only an indexing system, but it also contains all of the council activity or file activity. So when you click on the file, you get a lot of additional information. You see not only the title, but when the item was introduced, the expiration date, the committee that it's pending in, who moved it, how the item was introduced, was it by motion, resolution, was it initiated by a department report, and then you get all the file activity. So now one can actually track the entire file process from beginning to end, from the time it's introduced to the time it's acted on by council. You'll also see up on the upper right all the online documents that are relevant, as well as how the council voted on the item. As I mentioned, it's really transformed how we conduct our business, because it's finally an opportunity for people to track the entire legislative process. The public, via the RSS feed icons at the top or the email notification, can subscribe to it and receive notifications anytime there's activity on the file, whether that be a report that's added to the file or if the item is scheduled for a committee or council. And the system as a whole was really a result of the need for departments, neighborhood councils, the council offices themselves, the mayor's office, as well as our own department to track the files. And we developed the system in-house, and it's become a staple, again, as to how we operate. And this is a more self-service model. It's made our office, as well as the council, more transparent. We've become more responsive to the public. We receive less phone calls, as well as Public Records Act requests. And the public can now view, again, the files without having to come downtown. So we received a lot of positive feedback on the system from various cities, as well as different agencies. And it's really a one-of-a-kind system that, again, allows one to track the whole legislative process. So to give you an idea of the system as a whole and the need that it's addressed, we've been able to capture both the number of documents as well as the number of hits that we've received. For example, there are over 130,000 council files with almost 2 million views per year. There are approximately 30,000 ordinances, as well as 55,000 online contracts, each receiving 60,000 hits. So with 2 million views per year, we've recognized that our customer base is changing to a more mobile environment, therefore giving us a tremendous opportunity to address the need in our office and offer a more mobile-friendly application of LA City Clerk Connect. So with that, I want to hand it over to the programmer, Dennis Wong, to give you the actual demonstration.
I'm Dennis Wong, Office of the City Clerk. So our mobile app has been designed and enhanced for the mobile user experience. As you can see for our mobile app, we provide convenient link back to our full site if the user chooses to. And also, to better connect with the Office City Clerk, we provide a link to all of the Office Clerk's social media accounts, such as Twitter and Facebook. To help get the word out on my LA 311 app, we provide a link here for more information on the app. So LA City Clerk Mobile consists of 3 modules: Council File Management System, Contracts, and Ordinance Search. A use case would be, we've been hearing a lot about a citywide Wi-Fi initiative. So to get more information regarding that, we just go to Council File Management System. Here you can search by keyword, so we can search for Wi-Fi. You can further narrow down your search by searching only council files, motion only, resolutions only, motions and resolution. We're just going to select search all content. Click on search. You'll see your first search result. It's what we're looking for, Citywide Wi-Fi Initiative. As Shannon had covered, you'll see all the summary information here, the 5 latest file activities, links to documents that are related to this council file, and also if there's council votes, you will also see it here. So this is Council File Management System. Let's go take a look at contracts. So contracts, you can search by either contract number or by summary information. So for instance, if we can search for contracts, Granicus contracts. Click on search, and there it is. You can view the summary information, documents such as the contracts, the scanned contracts, and various other documents. And lastly, we have Ordinance. Again, it's just a simple keyword search. Perhaps we can search for marijuana. You'll see we got 19 results. You can see the ordinance, the PDF that we scanned in, and also a link back to the council file regarding this ordinance. Again, summary info, file activities, all the relevant documents, and also summary of the council votes. So currently, this web app is available. We have it online. We have a trigger in place to detect if a user is using a mobile device accessing our full site. They would be notified of the availability of our mobile website, and they would have the option to be directed to our mobile site. And also to provide fast and easy access, we provide instructions on how to create an icon on their mobile home screen to allow one-tap access to our web application. And now I'd like to turn over to Shannon to elaborate on our future plans.
So we just did a soft launch, and we have it available on the City Clerk's website. But our plans are to outreach to the departments as well as the council offices and highlight the app on the city's website. We'll also work with Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to continue to educate and outreach to the neighborhood councils as well. And we'll be working with the chair's office, hopefully on a press release. So
Great, absolutely.
that concludes our presentation.
Wonderful. Well, this is also, it's a great site. It's going to help all of us in doing our jobs and help folks who want to access the city. It's going to make us more environmentally friendly. People aren't going to have to be, printing out files all the time. We'll have mobile access to things. Just a couple of questions. You mentioned you're going to do outreach. I'm assuming you're going to outreach to each of the council offices, and that's extremely important. And then I see the 311 listed there. Is it also reversed? Can you access your app through the 311 app? And, well, maybe you don't know that's...
Mark's coming up. Greg Allison, City Clerk Systems.
Yeah.
We have been in discussions with ITA. ITA intends to look at a global solution for tying 311 into all of the city's different mobile applications. So eventually, I think the vision is there'll be some kind of a link there that'll show then all of the department's mobile apps, including LA City Clerk Connect, that they'll be able to tie into.
And ITA knows I ask this question all the time, and I ask it to every agency that comes up, because what I really want to see is everything integrated through the 311 app. So when the user wants to interface with the city in any way, you go to the 311 app, you see all the other apps that are there, you can access any aspect of the city. So it's kind of a rhetorical question in the sense that I know that that's where we want to head, and so if you want to add to that, I'm sure you can.
Yes, Councilman Mark Wolf with the Information Technology Agency. That's exactly the vision that we're following, where it really will become not only the 311 app for service requests, but also be a mobile portal for access to mobile apps throughout the city.
That's great, and because this is a great one that a lot of just the average user is not going to think City Clerk. As much as we all know and love and respect City Clerk, they don't know. Most people don't know what a City Clerk is, but they hopefully will get the message about 311, and then as they want to learn all the information the City Clerk's office has, they'll have access to it through that. One other question you asked about you're talking about the number of 2 million hits. Are those unique hits, or are you separating them out by user, or are they just the overall number?
We don't have it as unique hits, but they're actual searches. So it's not just hitting our website, it's physical actual searches where they've opened up a council file. Right now, we believe that we're about a 40-60 split as far as the percentages of users. So 40% is from the outside, 60% inside. There's a high level of activity from departments, the CLA, and the council offices, obviously. So that's what we're tracking. We also intend to track and are tracking how many mobile users are using the Mobile Connect, so we can do a comparison to see if we're getting a value on our, a return on our investment there, and we want to see those numbers climb. And we're hoping if we properly advertise it, we'll see some upticks in that environment.
Do you track the timing as well? I would assume that during council session, you hit a spike on.
We have it. It's by month. We track everything by month, so we can show a trend curve.
Can you see it if you wanted to parse it more? Can you if you wanted to just for a week look at the when the hits are? So you know what's driving.
We could capture that information. In addition to that, on a nightly basis, we collect the most top popular council files that have been searched, and that is also displayed on the new lacity.org website, showing the top 10 most popular council files, and it's a refreshing number that occurs the past 7 days.
I think that would be interesting to hear, to sort of, if we had a sense of the timing of some of this, we might see what's driving it, and that might also be instructive in terms of how we get the word out.
Okay, we'll take a look at that and see what kind of information we can, pull from that and provide to you.
Thank you. Congrats on doing the mobile app. I think this is great. I actually discovered it accidentally on Friday. I was in my office Friday, and I was trying to study up for budget and finance on Monday. And I was going through the agenda for the Budget and Finance Committee, and I wanted to read one of the staff reports. And so I clicked on the hyperlink for the council file index, and I was using my iPad, and it brought me to the mobile app, which was great. I was like, well, didn't know we had one. So, happy to see that we had it, but found a potential glitch you may want to think about. Key to any app is how does the user use it? You've demonstrated here one way that the user will use it. They will go to the app and they'll search for a subject. They might search for the mural ordinance or something. But if someone is looking at an agenda online and is doing the hyperlink like I was, as many members of the neighborhood council system will, or council staff, and you click on that link for the council file number, it brings you to this screen. So you no longer are connected to what you were looking at. You're within a certain report, you're clicking on a report, and it brings you here, so you have to go back and look up the number and write it down and then enter it in. So that's one way a lot of users will be using it that it isn't quite functional on yet. So something to
We'll take a look at that, and actually we look forward to any kind of input to help improve the system.
Yeah.
We literally just launched a soft launch last week. That's why, Councilman, you just noticed it. And we run in a couple of little minor issues, but we're ready to move forward and support it fully.
And once you figure out how to make that work, let's share that information with the Daily News, because I have the same problem when I click on one of their links. It brings me to their app homepage, and I have the same problem. And I can never find Rick Olaf's story. The question I had about not so much the app, but the council file management system in general is, a couple weeks ago, this is the example I'll use, we voted on the mural ordinance first reading, and it was automatically in the top 10 of your top 10 most popular council files. But 2 days later, I had constituents who were confused about what the council action had been, because there were a lot of amending motions, and 2 days later, those amending motions still weren't in the council file. How long does it take to update?
We typically update within 24 hours, but depending on the subject matter and how involved the amendments are and how much we need to go back and review, that's what it's dependent on. So, but really our staff works very hard to get all that information up within 24 hours because we know everyone's accessing it.
Yeah.
I mean, for all their meetings, all their, pre-meetings. So, again, 24 hours depending on the involvement.
Just a quick question. The CFI system goes back to 1980. Does this upgrade also go back all the way to 1980?
CFMS has records as early as 1979,
Okay.
I believe.
It's really a portal to our council file management system. We're leveraging the technology we built for the workstation version, and this is more like a front end that passes requests to the system. So whatever's live in CFMS is also the version you're seeing on the mobile.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much. I want to acknowledge that the city clerk was acknowledged at the LA Digital Government Summit recently, and there's a nice little book about that, and so congratulations on that as well. And we acknowledge the work that you're doing here, so thank you. We don't need to take any specific action on that, so we will move now to item 1 on the agenda. So, Mr. Villanueva, if you'd please read item number 1 into the record.
Item number 1 is the City Attorney Report and Ordinance to repeal Ordinance number 182630 adopted on July 3, 2013, authorizing the acquisition of land for the development of the St. Andrews Place Park project.
Okay, are there any cards on this item? Public cards? No cards. Okay, would the staff from the city's attorneys please come to the table and report on this item?
Good afternoon. Deputy City Attorney John Miner, presenting this report to repeal an ordinance adopted by the council on July 3rd for condemnation of 2 parcels in Council District 10. That action was taken, like I said, on July 3rd, and within weeks of that action, the neighborhood association, I think it's called the Country Club Park Neighborhood Association, met and informed the Department of Recreation and Parks that given the progress that had been made on the development of the 2 parcels, they'd just as soon see the houses get built and kind of passed on doing the park. So because we had adopted a condemnation ordinance, we need to kind of undo that to keep the record clear and no questions as to cloud on title or anything like that. And that's what this ordinance will do. It will repeal the condemnation ordinance that was previously adopted.
I'm sure repealing a condemnation ordinance is a lot less controversial than putting one in. So I don't have any particular questions. If any of my colleagues have questions on this one, I think it's pretty straightforward. So without objection, this item will be approved.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so item 2 is on consent. We'll move straight to item 3. Mr. Villanueva, if you would.
Item number 3 is the City Attorney Report and Ordinance amending Section 5.532 of the Los Angeles Administrative Code regarding creation and administration of a Green Retrofit Program Fund.
Great, thank you. And are there any public cards?
No cards.
No cards. Great. City Attorney's Office, you could identify yourself and please report the item.
Julianne Anderson, Deputy City Attorney, representing the General Services Department. In the audience from GSD, if we have detail questions, Valerie Meloff and Rose Kargesian. Gentlemen, good afternoon. We were asked to amend the administrative code to create a green retrofit program fund. Basically, it's to receive funds from the DWP for green retrofitting. It's not a complex change. It is virtually the same as the prior fund, but it recognizes the new green retrofit initiative that's been put forth. We were asked in the early summer to do this. We have. It amends Section 5.532 of the Administrative Code.
Okay. Great. Are there any questions on this item? It's also pretty straightforward. We want to...
Quick question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Do you have a sense at all how much revenue this will create per year, even a rough ballpark figure?
I don't. I would refer to...
Depends on the frequency of the loans and the amount of them, of course.
Good afternoon, Valerie Meloff, Department of General Services. The idea behind the fund is really to receive revenue from different funding sources, grants, and other initiatives where we can bring money in to implement retrofit programs. So what I can tell you is that in the past we were able to borrow $12 million, which your council approved, to implement up to 52 retrofit projects. We were lucky enough to get some ARA grants a couple of years ago, $14 million worth, where we were able to implement 33 ARA funded projects. There are other initiatives that are underway that will bring in, we hope will bring in some funds. As the city attorney mentioned, we're also borrowing money from DWP. We expect that we'll borrow probably another $12 million. So in that sense, the fund will generate that kind of revenue that can be used for retrofit projects. And we will be reporting back on an annual basis as to, what we've been able to accomplish with some ideas for future retrofits.
And in that, how do you calculate the energy savings or the water savings?
That's the simple answer to that is that we look at what our consumption was prior to implementing the retrofit. We look at, and then after we implement the retrofit, we look at what the savings were maybe about a year later, and the difference is basically the savings. There are more sophisticated computer programs that actually will capture that information in specific detail. At this point, we're still working out how we're going to do that.
Because obviously you have to control for all sorts of other variables, from weather to
different uses in the building.
Uses,
a lot of factors can implement what your savings level is going to be, and we're going to be able to, once we have this set up, we hope that we'll be able to go back and look, and if we see a difference, come back and be able to explain why that variance occurred.
If you calculate an ROI for the projects, an average ROI for the return on investment for the...
Yeah, well, generally the loans are based on the life expectancy of the item that we're installing.
And it's based on, in terms of the dollar savings?
No, well, the savings pay back the loans, yeah. So it's
but it's just to pay back, not to...
Well, the savings will, the savings or actually cost avoidance will continue, once you've paid back the loan. And
right.
That's the kind of thing that we will be reporting on in the future as well.
Maybe, I don't want to belabor, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, one or two of the items that you've actually already accomplished in the loan program, just to give us sort of a concrete examples.
Well, one great example is the cool roof that we've installed at the library. And was actually Senator Boxer recently visited and may be used as a springboard for additional funds. But we've also implemented energy-saving cooling systems that are state-of-the-art, which allow for remote control of those systems. our biggest effort has been in the area of lighting, where we've implemented energy savings lighting. GSD has been doing this since, a version of this kind of work since 2001. We've implemented about 250 projects, which have yielded thousands of hours of savings in kilowatt hours.
And sorry, go ahead.
It's a wonderful amendment and a wonderful program, so I want to see it continue, and I'd like to see the amendment.
Who determines how the money is spent?
The council?
So we do a council motion, and that's how the money is allocated?
Well, we will be working through the budget process to identify the projects to bring to you for your approval.
So it's done on a sort of a collective basis, like Prop K projects or capital expenditures, and not an ad hoc?
In a way. We also have, it depends also on the type of grant that you get with the QECB funds. These were bond monies. They had to meet a 20% savings, energy savings kind of threshold, so we would narrow down what the projects are. It's a fairly detailed process, and they're pre-identified. They have been in the past.
It sounds like the answer to this would be no, but would electrical vehicle charging stations at city facilities qualify for this fund?
Well, I think the ordinance is broad enough to where if we were able to find a grant or something that would allow us to.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Good.
Right. And I guess, and on June 26th, the council had an action to instruct the general manager to report by January 31st on the various savings and that kind of thing, and I assume we're on target with that, because that'll also answer a lot of the questions that we're thinking of now that are separate and apart from this amendment, but that are all related. So we assume we're on track for that.
Yes.
Great. Great. All right. Any other questions? Because unless there's an objection, this item will be approved. And then I also, on items 4 and 5, which we just mentioned, we do need to take a formal approval of that action where we got the reports on those two items, because this is going to be instructing the clerk to present to the full council. So without objection, we'll move that.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded and voted on. So there we go. So now let's move to item 6.
Item number 6 is a verbal report from the General Manager of ITA on department priorities.
Wonderful. Before we go there, are there any cards on this item?
There are no cards, sir.
Great. Mr. Rennick, thank you for joining us. And I know you suggested that we include this as a regularly scheduled item on the ITGS agenda. It's a great way to keep us all informed of what's the initiatives and priorities of ITA and to ensure we're all on the same page, because this committee, we really need to work hand in glove with you to make good things happen, and I appreciate what you're doing. So you could give us the overview of your top 10 list, or your priority list, I guess is a better way to, you don't have to use a Letterman voice, you can do it straight out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for considering this. We do have copies that are over here, because I know on the screen there it's difficult to read some of the small writing that's on there. As you may know, the ITA does have a formal project portfolio management system. We're tracking a little over 120 projects at this time. That's any level of effort. That's 80 hours or more. We try to focus the ITA just on the top 25. So we're only showing the top 10 here, but in the top 25 we have things like we discussed last week regarding security items that were on the top 10 last week. Enough momentum is being placed on them that most of the issues now are just buttoning up some contractual issues before implementation, so we've bumped those down a little bit. So the top 10 items and how we adjust those based on council motions coming in, directions this committee gives us, as well as other priorities to the mayor's office and trying to balance those out there. The number one priority that we are working on right now is Wi-Fi that you had mentioned. It's been a sore spot for a lot of the elected officials in City Hall East, and we've slowed down a little bit on that. We've got the contract vehicle in place. There's some software that's going to be implemented that is really crucial to this effort. What we're going to be doing here to save the city money is we're actually going to be disconnecting services that we're paying for where we already have a city network connection. So you might have a carrier connection, a city connection. We have software now that can provide a secure portal over the city's network. We have to be very careful how we implement that. We're in engineering phase right now. We're probably about 30 days away before we do full implementation of that, but that'll save the city money in the long run. We're going to be putting in brand new devices that's on a technology called 802.11ac, which will provide speeds up to 1 gig. So the performance of what the public will see as well as city staff will see will have significant improvements. So the efforts are in way. We're probably about 30 to 45 days before you see it on this floor in City Hall. On priority 2, the remote video testimony, we're actually going through a process. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that need to be done. ITA is working with the city clerk to make sure that we're very clear on when people want to join in, how we announce the meeting, how they figure out they can join the meeting, and more importantly for you, Mr. Chairman, that you know who those people on a first-come, first-served basis have interest in doing remote testimony in a limited amount of period. And then also being able to determine from a public records request how we got the recording there and making that available. So that process is close. We think that within I believe the next meeting this month is canceled, but I think in October we'll be ready to start some trial period with a Google Hangout scenario here for this facility. Great. Another item, number 3, it's really critical. It's something that's being managed through the IT Policy Committee, and that is the sunsetting of Windows XP. What is happening is Microsoft, as of April 1st, will no longer be supporting that operating system. The hacker community out there will have free access to post a lot of viruses and things for that particular operating system. So if we're not off, we basically open ourselves up to huge vulnerabilities. Right now, we estimate about 14,000 city desktops are still on XP. Most of the departments that have very large implementations like LAPD are well in hand and going well. Other departments that have funding shortfalls that need to be addressed are departments like the fire department, as well as Parks and Recreation, and then also the EDWW is also having some issues there. So we're working with them every single month. We're going to get a report that shows what our progress is, and probably over the next 2 or 3 months, if we have any serious shortcomings, we'll be coming back here for any direction and any items that we can do to try to rectify that before we wait till the last month or two when there may not be an opportunity to correct those issues. On the email and desktop standards, priority 4, that will be going forward for consideration in council tomorrow. Everything is ready to go from the state standpoint. ITA fully expects that, from our standpoint, that it's ready to go. We have had some concerns by the vendor community that relates to verbiage that we've added into the RFP recently that says the city does reserve the right to award portions of that RFP into the community broadband RFP, which I'll talk about here shortly. And there was also some concern on the optional items regarding the scoring aspects of the system. And we've made it very clear in the RFP that the scoring process is going to have 6 components. Adequacy of solutions and soundness is 25%. Implementation strategy required products will be 20%. Capabilities of organization and personnel is 15%. The schedule and ease of implementation is 10%. And something that came out of ITALC was the training and promotion of user adoption. It was really important. Whatever goes in, we want to make sure that the training and the advocacy of those products and solutions are carefully done so that the end user departments are trained and actually using the product. That is 15%. And lastly is the financial aspect of the total cost of ownership. So we are taking in consideration all the optional items and the required components from a total cost of ownership perspective. And so we think from that standpoint it's pretty clear on how the RFP responses will be graded. Regarding the priority number 5, the City-Wide Broadband RFP, we're about 2 weeks away from having a draft out there. And to kind of give you an idea what it looks like, so what we've been doing over the ITA has been doing over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've met with every cable provider, we've met with every cell provider, and all the major broadband providers here in the city of Los Angeles to explain the concepts. And really the concept is what we're asking for is somewhere between 1 and 5 meg of free broadband service for every City of Los Angeles residents, and that we have some level of fiber to every city business and all city facilities. And in order to entice any vendor or partnerships in the community, and hopefully those carriers that already have significant investment in LA to respond to that, there has to be an equality of gives back from the City of Los Angeles. We're looking at making this a 10-year contract. Some of the items that we've talked about, and we've asked the vendor community to come back if they think there are other items that would be of a significant nature for them to respond to the RFP. But to give you an idea, one is for the non-proprietary departments or those systems that the ITA manages and maintains. We're looking at flipping over the 10 years all of our fiber, data, and voice circuits. And if you add all those up, the spend on that is about $100 million over a 10-year period.
And then explain what that means, flipping over.
That would be going to, whoever were to win that RFP would mean that we would devote to them, as long as our spend doesn't exceed the amount that we're spending today, and dedicate that to them for that 10-year period. So there would be a guaranteed revenue stream that they would see from the investment that they're making in our community from a business perspective of what the City of LA is using.
That's substantial, I imagine. I mean, that amount.
Yeah, the entire list of gives right now is somewhere around $400 million that we're having on the table based on your consideration and direction and whether we exclude any of those. Some of the others are also our cell phones. So there are going to be some 4G options that exist out there. So all of our cell phone instruments, if the LAPD from a security perspective and coverage perspective meets the needs, that's one item up for negotiation. Another is managing the entire ITA data network from a managed services perspective. A lot of our equipment's at end of life. It would be an opportunity to make sure that we had a guaranteed and state-of-the-art network since a significant redesign is required. We're also at end of life on our telephone systems. This is an opportunity to go out and basically have a provider provide that as a hosted service or maybe a managed service. Both the cell phone spend would be about $130 million over a 10-year period. The data network's about $75 million over a 10-year period, and its estimated voice system, unless you had to buy the actual hardware, about $68 million. Other things that we could think about, some of the security managed components around our data network would be about $20 million a year. We've also talked to the Bureau of Street Lighting. They're looking at providing some negotiated discounted pricing for attachment to streetlights. We're also wanting to consider, like we had discussed last week with USC, some reduced and incentivized access to our right-of-way for any fiber or underground conduit in those locations, and also to gain access to city facilities and associated power. Some of the carriers do have interest in placing some of the products on rooftops, as an example, where we could provide that at little to no cost for them as an incentive as well. And the last item on there was consideration if there was any interest in managing the mail and apps environment, which would be a lower amount between $8 and $10 million over that 10-year period. So those are the items that we've come up with. That's kind of how the RFP is looking, to try to see and entice vendors to see if there is any interest in responding to provide the level of want that we want there from an economic development standpoint and bridging the digital divide here in Los Angeles. On priority number 6, the ITA is in an advisory capacity with the fire department regarding their master plan. They're having several meetings on it. We assist when asked. On priority 7, we are at completion and ready for rolling out the ITA strategic plan for this fiscal year. We've sent the drafts out. We've already gotten good feedback on that, so unless you direct us otherwise, we'll be posting that this evening for everybody to view, and ITA will be working on executing those particular items in there over the next 10 to 11 months. On item number 8, we are working with the mayor's office to do a quick hire for a chief information security officer. Right now, we do not have a single individual that oversees the security on our data network. They recognize the seriousness of that, and hopefully sometime in October we'll be able to announce who that position who's going to fill that role. On priority 9, we're working with the controller on a transparency site on special funds. We're right now inventorying the data sets that they would want to be placed on this open data site, and we are looking around a November timeframe for some kind of rollout that with them to be announced by them when they're ready. And lastly, we're still in contract negotiations on relocating our Van Nuys disaster recovery site. We actually have 2 DR contracts. One's just specifically for our mainframe with SunGuard. We're recommending extending that another year as we transition off that environment. Once we transition out, everything will be at a single facility, and right now we're negotiating at a site that LADWP is already located at in the Las Vegas area, and we hope to have that contract executed by the end of next month. So I'll open that up for any questions.
Great. On that last one, the reasons for doing it in Las Vegas versus somewhere else in California?
So, clearly any place with, outside a 200 or 300 mile zone is something to look at. We wanted to be out of a seismic zone. We were in discussions with the state of California to try to consider leveraging them, and we still will at some point. We decided to go ahead and continue with the LAPD or LADWP's contract because we could do so much faster. So as we work on what fiber access is available from Sacramento to One Wilshire in Los Angeles, which is where the internet connections come in, and as we work on available space and some of the policy decisions there, we may be coming back based on a cost proposal to change that if the location in Las Vegas is more expensive.
Colleagues have any questions on this? This is great. Obviously, it's a moving target as you change the priorities between each session, and we look forward to weighing in on those. But it looks like you've got some good priorities put forward, and I know that the bigger list of priorities is how long? How many?
A little over about 120 right now.
And are all of the ones on the 120 list active, or some of them more dormant than others?
Only the top 25 probably have active work on it. There's some that we don't have contracts for, or some where we have ongoing maintenance and dedicated staff that are working on that are lower level than that. But there's a number that are unfunded at this time as well.
Great. Well, this is great, and I look forward to this being a regular attraction at our hearings. And it's great to get up to date on these things. Do you have a question?
No, great list. Just hope some of these stay in the top 10 when you come back next month. You got, or be completed, right?
Exactly.
I think that's what you meant.
We're going to be knocking them off the top 10 list because as we get them completed, and the contracts. The RFPs are also interesting. Between we have these 2 major RFPs coming out for the email system, and then down the road for the Wi-Fi, and then the potential severability. And I like the fact that it's moving forward. We're not waiting for one then the other. We're moving forward. So that's great. All right. So what's that?
There's no public cards.
No public cards. Unless there's any other closing comments from my colleagues. Thank you all. It's been a good session of the Innovation Technology General Services Committee, and this hearing is now officially adjourned.